Hello to all of our listeners out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 28 of the Canadian Patriot podcast, recorded on May 23rd, 2016. Joining me this evening, we have Gavin, a business owner, gun enthusiast, hunter, atheist, and the host of the Greater Toronto Area chapter of the Tactical Beer Owners Club. Hey, Gavin, how's it going?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Pretty good, thanks. We're also joined by a new panelist. Tonight we have Ben, a dirty American, at-home caregiver, politically unaffiliated gun enthusiast, hunter, and troller of the social justice warriors. Hey, Ben. I understand that Gavin found you on maplematch.com.
I didn't quite catch that.
Aww. Well, we're happy you could be here anyway. As always, I'm your host, Andrew. I'm a libertarian competitive shooter, gun club director, and a gear reviewer on everydaytactical.com.
And we'd love to hear your feedback about the show. Please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. We love your hate mail. It's basically why I get up in the morning. But if you leave us a 5-star review on the iTunes, you could decide what I drink for an episode, which could be hilarious. So get on it.
I've also got a note for anyone that wants to become a panelist or be interviewed on the show. I have to apologize. We had a server problem. I fired the guy, don't worry. If you've recently submitted, and by recently I mean ever, submitted a request for an application as a panelist on the show through our website, please let me know. CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/panelist. Fill out a new one, and it will probably get into my inbox this time. I don't know how much email we didn't get or should have got or anything like that, but I promise the server guy has been appropriately flogged. We also have a logo contest going on at the moment. This is our last week for our logo contest, and we have a whopping, an overwhelming single submission so far. So we're accepting submissions via email or through Facebook to the end of the month, to the end of May. And in the first 2 weeks of May, we'll post the entries to Facebook for voting. The person that submits a winning design will receive a free T-shirt because I understand that as a podcast in 2016, you are required to make T-shirts now.
Pretty sure that's the law.
Pretty sure it's the law. As it stands, Gavin is winning with the number one and only entry. Yay, Gavin. And the crowd goes wild. Way to go. We have one person in the YouTube. Hi, Tim. So, what are we drinking tonight? We'll start with Gavin.
I am, in honor of Her Majesty Queen Victoria, drinking tea this evening. It is her birthday, which is why we had the day off.
Right on. Ben, what are you drinking? Ben, are you there?
Ben
is pointing to beer.
I am repping the Polish Okocim this evening.
Excellent choice.
Right on. In honor of my recent visit to Jamaica, I am drinking all of the rum because they actually kicked me out of Jamaica after having drank all of the rum.
So you did accept that challenge that the guy gave you for your in-room bar?
Yes, there was a bar in the room, and he said, "This is all of the alcohol?" And I said, "That's no problem. Where's the rest of it?" Well, it's not a challenge. That's too bad I took it that way.
Go big or go home.
Right? Well, hey, if you're going to leave me a bottle of booze unsupervised and follow that up with other bottles of booze, I mean, what am I supposed to do? We also have Mike in the chat. He feels ignored, and that's only because he is. But also, hi, Mike. Thanks for listening. All right, let's do the top of the news, because this is basically Trudeau-gate this week, right?
Yep.
You want to kick it off, Gavin?
Yeah, I guess the first story here we have is the renovations to 24 Sussex, estimated at $150 million.
Yeah, that beats the $10 million I remember Trudeau talking about when he got elected.
Well, like father, like son, right? I mean, how much did Trudeau
Well,
spend to put that pool in there that we're still paying for?
in today's dollars, 880,000.
That's pretty expensive pool.
Hey, that's okay. The pool is dilapidated and not serviceable and cannot be swum in. So,
But we're still paying maintenance on it and
but we
upkeep.
are still paying maintenance on it. So, go Liberals, I guess. I don't know. I
But
looked up a bunch. Go ahead, Ben.
is there truly a price to pay for a schoolhouse?
Yes, yes, there is 880,000 in today's dollars, which I think I forget what the number was at the time. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say it was like 300,000. But I don't know. I looked at the governor. It's not the governor generals. It's the GCC. Some government agencies in charge of upkeep and maintenance at 24 Sussex. And I read through the report, and it's incredibly dry. But I took out a couple of good points. The last major, we'll call it an improvement. The last major improvement was in 1998 when they replaced the roof. So, I mean, to be fair, it is probably time to make some upgrades at 24 Sussex.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right, like if the roof hasn't been done since 98, okay, that's coming up on 20 years, the roof is probably ready to be done. Okay, it's got knob and tube wiring from the 50s. That is also one of those things that it's not a pressing issue, but at some point when you have the walls ripped open for something, you probably want to pull out and replace it with some more modern electrical systems, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think that the Liberals, the Prime Minister, whichever group is responsible for this, Mr. Trudeau's mom, well, she was the one, right, that said that, oh, here we go, it's the National Capital Commission, thanks, Tim. It's the NCC that's responsible for upkeep and maintenance of 24 Sussex. Mrs. Trudeau, Sr., was the one that said that her son would not live in such terrible conditions, and that's why they're living in the cottage at Rideau Hall, because 34 rooms isn't quite big enough, but how many's in the Rideau cottage? It's only like 18 rooms instead of 34? Something like that?
I mean, things are tough all over, so sometimes you just have to make do.
So, I mean, like, to the NCC's point, which is points that they've been making since roughly 2006, there are things that need to be done at 24 Sussex because it has not been maintained. But I really don't understand why they've done anything to it since 1950. My personal preference is we knock it over and start again, because it was a much nicer building prior to 1952 when they renovated it and made it the seat of our government.
Yeah, I mean, eventually they get to a point where the cost of updating is going to be more than just knocking it to the ground and rebuilding something equally
honestly,
as impressive or better.
At $150 million, I don't understand why they don't just build a new one and make it like a green certified IEEE, whatever that standard is for new homes, and just make it, top tier. Because I can't imagine a new home, 34 rooms or otherwise, costing $150 million.
Now, my question is, because I was reading, they were talking about the pool house and how they're talking about possibly let's just bulldoze that and build a park because it'll save money. But, which I guess the builder wants it to be a heritage site. So is the main building a heritage site where you can't tear it down?
I don't know what the official ruling is on it. I don't think it is designated as a Canadian heritage site, which has an actual title, and we're not allowed to mess with things like the colors of doors because that offends someone. But I think it is recognized as a heritage building in that it's like a historic building, because the building is over 100 years old, right? And it was only made into the Prime Minister's residence in 51, 52 for, I got this, Louis Saint Laurent. Louis Saint Laurent was the Prime Minister that it was originally renovated for in the 50s. And if I'm not mistaken, up until the mid-70s, they paid rent to live there. I don't know what the rent was, and I don't know what the cost adjusted for inflation is. But It is a 34-room mansion. It is probably overkill, particularly when you keep in mind things like Trudeau campaigning on the, fighting for the middle class and real change. So far the real changes have gone from 34 rooms to like about 20 rooms.
Well, I mean, I would say anyone that's got less than 30 rooms is middle class. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
that's.
I mean, I only have 45 rooms in my house. I don't know. The whole thing seems like
the 31st room is that gold standard of making it.
Yeah.
Does it count if it's the pool house?
Or an outhouse?
We'll call it the Trudeau.
I believe you mean the Trudeau.
Well, here's the quote: the guy that designed the pool house. This is his quote about tearing it down. Some people know the cost of everything and the value of nothing.
I get what
that pool house is so.
That is both deep and insightful, but it's a pool house. And...
But yeah, I think that applies to other things like that have some more sentimental value, not pool houses.
I don't know. I prefer the way the building looked before they made it the Prime Minister's residence because it had a much cooler turret. I'm all about things that you can put in turrets. Belt-fed things, for example.
Yeah, of a 50 caliber nature.
Well, you need the fields of fire.
Right. Well, and they don't have the turret anymore. They made the front of the building flat in 52, and they did that was the last major renovation was when it went over to NCC and it became the Prime Minister's residence. And it might be time to knock it down and start again because I don't think $150 million is really a solid investment. The other thing that kind of kills me about this is Trudeau is all about the campaign promises for infrastructure spending, and he's all about First Nations welfare, right? Like getting water, like drinking water, drinkable water on reserves, and bringing the First Nations peoples out of poverty that live in, like, say, Ottawa-Piscat, for example. And their biggest priority right now is trying to figure out how to carve out another $150 million in the budget to possibly take 4+ years to renovate this building and make it livable again, because right now it's not supposed to be livable, but we've had PMs living there for the last 50 years.
So what if we get a bunch of native people that have construction backgrounds and skills to go and live there for 4 years while they renovate it?
I think that's a solid jobs building program right there.
You can put at least 34 of them in there.
Like, I don't understand. Like, there's nothing better we could do with $150 million, and there's something wrong with living in Rideau Cottage. Like, I don't know. This whole thing baffles me. To be fair, everything in the building does probably need to be replaced because knob and tube electrical is, not code, and it's not a wheelchair-accessible building. And the plumbing is basically falling apart. Like, I mean, there's a lot of pros with the building, but at the same time, spending $150 million is probably not the best choice for our Prime Minister's residence.
No, I mean, and do they need to fix it all at once?
Well, and that's the other thing. They talked about doing this as like a staged, multi-year plan through the NCC report, but they're talking about like a 4 to 8 year plan. And I mean, really, if that's the case, like, knock it down, build a new one, take 24 or 36 months to do that. You're still faster. I still don't think it would take that long, and then it doesn't need to be a phased approach. And if it is going to be a phased approach, like, what are you going to phase? You got to rip the walls out to do all the electrical and plumbing, and then put the walls back up. Like, it's not really a thing that you do in phases.
Yeah.
I mean maybe if they do every room one at a time, but that's terribly inefficient for how contractors work. So,
well, why don't they just rip it down and then rebuild it so that the outside looks exactly the same, or do what they've done with a lot of places and like keep the facade, and then just gut the interior.
Well, when they do that with the White House, Ben, you're an American. When did they do that in the White House? It was under Truman.
Yeah, I want to say it was early 50s, early to late 50s.
Right?
is
Because
air
they totally
conditioning.
gutted the White House, and I've seen pictures of bulldozers inside of it, making the sub basements.
Right, and they expand natural air and everything like that, but literally they basically turned it into a shell and then built up from there.
Yeah, which I think that's a fairly reasonable approach. Just gut it and start over.
Yeah, if the outside of the building is so important to keep for heritage reasons, yeah, just keep the shell and gut the inside and do whatever you want with it inside then.
Well, I still contend that the outside's not that important because the outside's only been there since '52, so it's
Well,
not
yeah.
old enough to be heritage.
And yeah, they
Well, and
really
that's
should put
like
some machine gun turrets.
turn into pool.
We have
Turn into
questions
pool.
on. Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
It's like turning a pool into a heritage site. It's been there for 40 years. Is it really that important?
Well, maybe if your daddy built it, you'd feel different.
Then he probably entertained a few ladies there, so.
Yeah, or his lady got entertained there. Oh, Mick Jagger. We have questions in the YouTube chat. Gavin, what kind of tea are you drinking? This is
Tetley's Orange Pico.
well, that's good because we have another comment saying Tetley tea is the only tea. And while I strongly disagree, Tetley tea is the best orange Pico tea. Oh, also apparently there's no air conditioning in 24 Sussex. My heart bleeds. I also don't have air conditioning, but I also don't live in a 34-room mansion. We established it was slightly larger.
It would be too expensive to air condition your 45 rooms. That
I do enjoy. I found a stat from 2012 from National Capital Commission that it costs nearly $70,000 in 2012 for heat and hydro at 24 Sussex. Something there sounds like they're doing more than just leaving the lights on.
Sounds like they're cooking meth in there.
yeah.
Does it take a lot of electricity to cook meth?
I don't
Burning
know.
question. I don't.
I imagine it costs a lot if they have a grow up in the basement.
Fair enough. Let's go into the two main topics tonight we have. We'll start with hashtag pray for Sophie.
That poor woman.
I don't know. One of you guys want to take a crack at this? Because I have a comment.
Oh yeah, I do because I found a juicy information in my research. I have an issue with this whole let's breastfeed kids till they're like 8 years old. She's still breastfeeding the 2-year-old and doesn't see an issue with that. Now, mind you, I've never breastfed a child.
Yet.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm down with that. But also, that's weird. I really don't know what to say to that. That is a very weird... Where did you find that?
Ben ended up on
in
the
a
wrong side of the internet
CBC
again.
Canada article. No, that was in a CBC Canada article.
Yeah, I stand by my statement. The wrong side of the internet.
All right. Well, let's look at some of the things that Mrs. Trudeau is so very, very overwhelmed with, like her 2 nannies and personal chef, and the fact that the Prime Minister's office needs to look at ways to ease her workload. Because, wait, what? She has 2 nannies and personal chef. What's she doing? She doesn't have a real job. Like,
Yeah, I mean, this is how I look at it. So, let's say that Justin was not prime minister, and that he had a corporate job instead that happened to provide a personal chef and 2 nannies.
oh, can we also say that it gives them a housing allowance and pays him, like, I don't know, $350,000 a year?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, let's make it accurate. She then needs more help because she's decided to take on speaking engagements that she may be getting paid for, or is agreeing to do without pay to lend her name to a cause that she feels strongly about. If they needed more help, because I don't doubt that she is busy with everything that she does, but why would, like, I don't think a company would tell her that it's okay to hire someone at their expense. So why is it okay that why can't Justin pay it out of his salary if they need the extra help? Like,
well, so here's this interesting thing. Do you know who Natalie Saint Denis is?
the name sounds familiar.
Natalie Saint Denis is someone our government already pays through the Prime Minister's office to be Mrs. Trudeau's assistant.
Maybe they need to hire a more efficient assistant then.
Maybe. It's entirely I had not considered that angle. It's entirely possible that that's the problem, is Miss Saint Denis is not good at her job. Somehow I doubt that.
I'm actually going to take a slight position that most of the diehard fans of this podcast will. It's kind of funny how she's getting bashed for this, but when Mila Mulroney was let's just call it First Lady of Canada, she got a taxpayer office, she got 3 taxpayer assistants, but there was no outrage from that's outraged now.
That's fair. I think the outrage is on a different side. Well, yeah. The outrage is on the opposite side now, because Mulroney was a conservative prime minister, and he was one of the only PMs with another likable, air quotes, likable wife, because Sophie Trudeau is one of those likable people, kind of like her husband. She's got really nice hair, and she says flowery things that don't really have a lot of context.
Well, that is because she is a tall poppy, after all.
We'll get to that. Don't worry. Ben and I are on the same page. We're about to get to that.
No. It's not that you need to get to that from the context of what's being said. I have that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was any more right back then. I just think that, one, social media wasn't a thing, so there's fewer people that are in the know. And yeah, it'll be the other half of the country, essentially, that is complaining this time around, as opposed to complaining last time.
That's right. And the last 2 PMs did not have likable wives. Mrs. Mulroney was, like Sophie Trudeau, a likable person. She was asked to go to events and, speak and do whatever it is that they do at these events. I don't know. I'm not invited.
Okay, so not knowing who these people are, that seems my first inclination is typically when you're saying they're likable, they're somewhat attractive, and they photograph well.
Yes, that is basically what I'm saying. But, I mean, to be fair, I'm also quoting the CBC.
So, the other 2 basically had trolls for wives.
I wouldn't go so far as to say trolls. I mean, of the Kretchens, Mrs. Kretchen was definitely the better-looking one.
That's not saying much, though.
I don't know. Mrs. Harper, not my type, but I don't know. Kind of looks like every Canadian's mom, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they weren't glamorous.
Yeah, well, that's probably the right way to describe it, Gavin, is they were not glamorous. And Sophie Trudeau, I mean, who else breaks out into fucking song at a press event? A song that they composed themselves, by the way.
Horribly,
yeah.
Ben's actually got it as his ringtone on his phone now.
We have an interesting... I was hoping somebody in the YouTube would bring this up since Ben started this. Mike would like to clarify that Canada does not, in fact, have a First Lady as an official title. She has no job, no role, and no need to be in the public eye. And while I don't necessarily disagree with Mike, the only spouse that has an official role in the Canadian government is it's the Governor General's wife, and I can't think of her title now off the top of my head. But the Governor General's wife is the only politician's spouse who has an official role in our government, and it's an entirely diplomatic role. She's supposed to like receive and greet visitors to our country. That's her whole thing. So she goes to like state functions and is like, "Hi, I'm the Governor General's wife."
And I mean, like,
Well, speaking of,
yeah, go ahead.
speaking of, she has no job. I sat through about a 45-second video of her talking, which was a pain.
Did you get
But she
an
made the
embolism
comment.
from that?
I felt nauseous. She makes a comment that I'm here to serve. And the only thought running through my mind was, okay, you didn't get elected, you don't have a job. So you doing all this stuff is a luxury. It's not your job. So the people shouldn't have to pay for what you want to do on your own time.
So on her own time, before her husband was elected as PM in October, she was doing the same, air quotes, job she's doing now.
And she didn't need an assistant then.
Well, she didn't have an assistant that I've been able to find out about then. I mean, maybe she did, but I can't find anything about it. And the only thing on the Liberal website that's like, oh, she's an advocate for change, she's the UN Women National whatever, and she's like dedicated to women's rights, and she's the ambassador to something called Planned Canada's Because I'm a Girl initiative, and like, I don't give a... Awesome. Cool. If like my passion is shooting stuff. I like firearms. If you want to be like, I don't know, I guess a hashtag feminist because I'm a girl, like, go fucking nuts. Like, have a good time. Go and like talk about being a woman and whatever it is these people do. I'm all for that. But the only thing on the Liberal website that I could actually consider a skill set for this woman is that she is a mother. That's an applicable skill, but she has 2 nannies and a personal chef. Moving on. And she's a yoga instructor. Okay, go teach yoga and collect a salary.
Yeah. But yoga is cultural appropriation, so she's not allowed to do that anymore.
I don't understand. Lorraine Harper was all about, like, save the animals, right? I mean, that's not what got publicized in the CBC, because, remember, Stephen Harper is the devil. But Lorraine Harper was all about, like, stop animal cruelty. Let's, like, open shelters for animals and stuff. And that was, like, her cause, not hashtag feminism. But I don't understand how it's any different. She did it on her own dime. Nobody cared, right? And Tall Poppy here wants to be all hashtag feminist, and we should pay for it? Like, her husband canceled child tax benefits for the middle class. They have 2 taxpayer-funded nannies. There seems like there's a disconnect there.
Yeah. My solution
I think
is that if JT, for short, has his salary and everything, because he's got no expenses really, why doesn't he take some of that money that he makes and hire somebody, one of these native people, or someone that lost everything in Fort McMurray, pay them out of his pocket to go and be her assistant if she needs one that badly?
Makes sense to me.
Well, that's because even though he self-professes to be a feminist, I personally believe he's part of the patriarchy. And that's why she didn't have an assistant before he became prime minister. Because he was oppressing her and keeping her down for the patriarchy.
Oh, and we have a YouTube comment. Then Victory slams our knowledge with things, saying she's a certified yoga instructor. To me, that means she should get paid extra. But anyway.
Another nauseating fact that I'm just reading this going, you've really got to be kidding me. So they're talking about when she first met Justin Trudeau.
Was it like a fairy tale? I hope it was.
Well, they were both wearing yoga pants, and
Well, no, because they were discussing feminism and how she really liked the fact that he was a feminist, and that if he wasn't a feminist, that would have been a deal. Basically, she was looking for a white knight mangina to take care of her.
well, she lucked out. She, in theory, has the most powerful man in Canada.
Well, yeah, I mean, multi-million-dollar trust fund baby who's managed to find himself in the prime minister's chair. So, yeah, good for her. I mean,
Yeah.
way to land the big fish.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is the thing. Like, as prime minister, regardless of your party affiliation, I do feel that there are certain things that should be offered to you as compensation for your job. I think, like, I don't have a problem with them giving them a residence. I don't have a problem with them giving him an assistant. I don't necessarily have a problem with them, paying for certain things for him. I think that's all part of the package deal, as if you were a, high-powered CEO or something, like that. That's what
Exactly.
happens.
I'm totally on board with that.
And as a business owner, I've had to go to some business functions occasionally that your spouse is supposed to come along for, and the company pays that and everything. But the difference is that when I do it with my company, it ultimately comes out of my pocket,
Well, that's the thing is,
not my
people like
employee's
you or
pocket.
I are responsible for the bottom line. People like Justin Trudeau basically have unlimited money because we have to watch our bottom line. And, turn over 13% to the government on everything we do.
Yeah, but yeah, when he's spending like $2,000 to fly into Toronto for the night, and then that doesn't even list all of his expenses if you look, because the plane that he took is owned by the government, so they don't list the cost of the flight because he didn't purchase a commercial ticket.
Yeah.
But they had to pay the pilot for however long he was gone for, plus whatever the cost of the fuel is, plus maintenance on the plane and storage of the plane and all of that stuff, which it adds up. Not that we shouldn't have a private plane for our prime minister, but $2,000 to spend one night in Toronto is a little ridiculous.
Well, that's the $2,000 for the hotel in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't take into account the RCMP officers that are responsible for security, coordination with the Toronto PD, like you mentioned about the cost for the plane, the pilot, and the assorted accessories that go with that, plus any staff that he would have had to take with him and lodge for the evening.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, I mean, I don't have I mean, the plane's going there anyways, and his wife wants to tag along, by all means. It's not going to cost us any more, but at the same time, like, if she doesn't need to be there in a sort of official capacity, like, they're not hanging out with Obama and Michelle, like, fist bumping and everything, like, for photos, then why is she going, and why are they spending more money, like, housing them and the kids and everything just so he can go to Toronto on business for a day? Like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
it's all in
Ben,
that same... Sorry, yeah, go on.
Did you want to talk about the whole tall poppy thing?
Yes, I have but I don't have the cultural reference behind it.
Oh, okay. The cultural reference for tall poppy, it's a Commonwealth thing. It's not very common in the part of Ontario where I live. I would hazard a guess it's not common in many parts of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth being countries like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the UK, like British Commonwealth. That's what we're going
Right.
for. The tall poppy is a plant, like a poppy, that grows taller than all of the other
I know what
plants.
the plant is.
You can turn it into opiates.
Right.
So, tall poppy syndrome is where we take down the one plant that is doing better than all of the others to make it more uniform. It's not very commonly used.
Because the article I read, you could tell from the slant that the gentleman was taking was he was taking it as a derogatory term, that these people were just trying to knock.
Well,
Yeah,
I support those people that are trying to knock her because I'm sure I've read similar articles. She is, in fact, a stay-at-home mom that has 2 nannies and a personal chef. She has no official duties as the Prime Minister's wife. She is not responsible for any of the functions of our government. If she's a tall poppy because she's attractive and, I hazard to say, well-spoken after having listened to the woman speak. Like, if that's what we're knocking her down for, is because she's moderately attractive and is a public figure, oh, wow, we have problems as a society.
Haters gonna hate.
And then Gavin triggered me, and I've been contemplating going to my safe references to Obama. But the best part was the article I was reading talking about Obama and his wife, talking about that they're soulmates. And because she's so popular with the Obamas, that has made her popular. Going, I had no clue who this lady was before I read these articles.
Yeah, I'm afraid that the average Canadian doesn't either, because I'm relatively confident if you ask most Canadians what causes Sophie Trudeau is involved with, most of them will not be able to accurately name any 2 of them.
The only one I can name is the spending of taxpayer money.
Well, you could take a shot in the dark and say hashtag feminism and probably be close.
You're close, because the one thing that kept popping up in every article was being body positive, and she needed to fight.
Well, I'm glad she's body positive. I wish she was singing positive, and by that I mean didn't sing or sang better.
A lot better.
Oh my God, who breaks out into song during a press conference for Martin Luther King with their own song that has nothing to do with Martin Luther King? And you want us to give you more money as a taxpayer? Are you high?
Maybe we should pay for singing lessons. I mean, if she's going to keep doing it, she may as well be good at it.
Yeah, okay, sure. We've got YouTube comments saying we didn't know who she was until 10 minutes ago. You, sir, need to read the news more. No, seriously. So I've been in Jamaica for a week. And I check my phone, fairly regularly, hanging out by the pool, need something to do, and I read the news, right? Just like when I'm at home. And all I can find is hashtag pray for Sophie and hashtag elbowgate. So if you're a Canadian and you're not aware of these things, you clearly have not flipped on the television or the news recently. You didn't care to know who she was. That is different.
Well, and you probably wouldn't ever know who she was because she has no official role in our government.
No, and I don't know why they would.
Yeah.
Why is the CBC running stories about? Who ran this stupid story in the first place? Some new. It was a magazine out of Montreal or something that was interviewing her.
Oh,
and
yeah. It was Clementine something or other.
That sounds like you're making it up, but okay, we'll go with it.
I'll buy it.
Yeah, they asked her, what stresses you out or whatever, being the PM's wife, and she's like, I don't have enough help because I'm involved in all these speaking engagements. I'm paraphrasing like a crazy person because I don't have the article in front of me. But that's the gist of it, right? She's like, I need more help because I am overwhelmed. Oh, McLean's. Okay, comment in the YouTube says it was a McLean's interview.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's our only Canadian magazine, so that makes sense.
I haven't bought a magazine since I stopped buying Wired in 2006.
Yeah, that and Playboy doesn't have any nude ladies in it anymore, so...
I know, right? What's up with that?
So much for body positive.
Well, hey, if you buy, I think it's People, you get to see a full spread of Bruce Jenner. I mean, hashtag Caitlyn Jenner.
Hopefully he's not fully spread.
Oh no,
Hey,
he did. Fully spread.
Hey, it's Caitlyn Jenner, damn it.
Uh-huh.
You get
For
our
now.
narratives here right.
For now, I believe they are transitioning back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was popped up a little while ago, but then
Wow.
Elbowgate happened, so
That lasted almost as long as a Hollywood marriage.
yeah.
Let's actually talk about Elbowgate then, because this was the thing that entertained me while I was drunk in Jamaica for a week. Somebody want to give me the rundown of Elbowgate?
Well, I guess that depends on who you ask about it. I mean, if you ask the lady that was hit, Justin Trudeau bolted across the floor and savagely, maliciously attacked her for being a woman, and made it her, along with every other woman in the room, feel unsafe to be at work. I'm paraphrasing, but
A little bit, yeah.
that is the impression that she is giving in her side of the story, in my opinion.
Okay, so let's go back a step. Before he elbowed, what's that MP's name? Ruth Ellen Brousseau.
Mm-hmm.
So before that,
Who again, no one's heard of.
well, she's an inconsequential MP for the NDP from what, Quebec?
Yeah.
So she matters not.
Unless
was
she's
the thing?
French Canadian.
Well, we'll get to you in a minute. You and your maple match. So the whole thing about this. Oh, Me Tao is on the chat tonight, and he says Justin Trudeau, he can hit feminists. Or I'm sorry, he can hit girls because he's a feminist. That's funny.
Brilliant.
So the whole thing with the House of Commons that brought this all up is they're trying to pass a bill called C-14. And it's basically the assisted suicide bill. The bill lays out the conditions in which ill or palliative care Canadians seeking medical help can choose to end their own lives. So this is this is the reason they were in the House of Commons. Tim Hill says she is no one who got 15 minutes of fame, and I agree. Back to C-14. C-14 was the whole point why they were in the House of Commons. So we have this whole parliamentary procedure in Canada because we're a parliamentary democracy. And there are certain things that are required to be observed in order to have a vote on a bill like C-14. Oh, the rum, it makes me burp. Part of that is having everyone sit down. Most importantly, having the whips of each party sit down. So the whip is the person that's responsible for the overall organization of voting practices within their political party. Just like it is in the U.S., no different. So everybody that's watching House of Cards, that's what Kevin Spacey did before he became president. Cool, now we're caught up on how parliamentary politics works. So the NDP, who is we'll call them the most left-leaning party in Canada, was blocking one of the two aisles in the House of Commons. The way the House of Commons is set up is you have the government and the opposition, and they sit on opposite sides and they look at each other. And I assume that's so they can flash gang signs and flip each other off and things like that, right? Well, okay, so there's more to it.
What would happen if we had them mix, right?
Well, you can't have them mix, and there's a reason why the aisle in the middle of the House of Commons is the width that it is. And it is the same width as two swords. And the reason is because we inherited all this crap from England, is to keep the MPs from fighting with one another using swords. Seriously, that's why the aisle is as wide as it is. So we have the government, and we have the opposition to the government, which is still the government, but it's just they didn't get the most seats, they lost. And you're only allowed to walk up your side of the aisle. There's two sides, and there's people that sit in the middle, and they're part of the government, but they're not elected officials. They take notes, and they're the sergeant at arms, and they do various and other assorted functions within the House of Commons. So the NDP is blocking a conservative member, the whip in this case, Apparently, I don't say palpative right, but whatever. Palliative? I shake my fist at you. Anyway, the conservative whip was barred going up his side of the aisle because the NDP is standing in his way. So, like a whiny, petulant child, the Prime Minister leaves his seat, crosses the aisle, pushes his way through the NDP blockade, allegedly tells the NDP to get the fuck out of his way, because that's the level of decorum that I expect from the leader of our fair country, to physically move the conservative whip through the blockade, and in the process, throw an elbow at MP Brousseau, who's an NDP member, by the way. Then he goes and sits his ass back down like an adult, because that's what he should have done in the first place, is continued to sit like an adult. Because if we wanted to follow parliamentary politics, and we really wanted to do this the right way, the Speaker of the House could have called for a vote and ordered everyone to sit their ass in their chair. And if they didn't do that, he could have asked the Sergeant at Arms, the same guy that shot the terrorist 2 years ago, to go and physically put everyone in their seats. But because Justin Trudeau is a petulant child, he had to go and take that upon himself. And he has apologized for that act on no less than 4 counts. Because apparently he's a petulant child.
To be fair, though, if you listen to his apology, it was pretty terrible, and you would think that for a drama teacher, he would be a much better public speaker.
Which apology did you listen to?
I guess it was
at least 4.
I believe it was the second one.
The second one is by far my favorite because, allow me to do my best Justin Trudeau, I feel really terrible about the inadvisable actions that I took, and I deeply regret my mistakes, and I should have treated the other members with more respect. Man, this guy hums and haws like a horse.
Yeah, and then he goes on to explain his actions rather than just apologizing and shutting the fuck up.
Which would have been the right course of action. But he's apologized on at least 4 cases that I've seen on C-SPAN. Like, you're not helping. You're making it worse.
Yeah, and I mean, I certainly hate to defend this guy because I'm certainly no fan of his, but... And yeah, maybe he shouldn't have, broke rules, but I certainly don't think he maliciously flung an elbow.
I agree. I don't think he maliciously elbowed MP Brousseau. And
No.
It does entertain me how much the feminists are upset about MP Brousseau, because she is apparently, shaming her entire gender as a result of this. She's making everyone that suffered domestic violence and rape and any other sort of physical abuse a lesser person as a result of her actions because she couldn't take an elbow like an adult.
Well, yeah, an accidental elbow like an adult.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, that's the feminist MO. If you don't adhere to our talking points or you don't agree with us and you're a female, we're going to eat our own.
Yeah, this was... I don't understand how she offended every feminist on the internet ever by doing this, because regardless of how hard she was elbowed, this is still workplace violence. And it doesn't matter if I go into my workplace and elbow one of my coworkers, male, female, or otherwise. It wouldn't matter how hard I elbowed them. The police would still charge me with assault because I elbowed them.
Yeah, but again, to me, it's more if you intentionally go and elbow somebody, then I agree. That is an assault, and it doesn't matter how hard you actually hit somebody or not, or how it's perceived. I mean, I imagine it hurt. I mean, I've been hit in the pectoral area, probably not as sensitive on a man as a woman, and it hurt, especially if it happens when you're not expecting it. I don't doubt that. But I still think there is a huge difference between him trying to push through and accidentally hitting her in the chest and throwing an elbow like in hockey.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And that's the difference, right? And I think that's why the feminists are all outraged, because it's not like he went up and said, screw you, you're a woman, and like smacked her in the face. It happened accidentally. Sure, it was during, a work thing because that was their job place. But I mean, I don't think that's the same as workplace violence in my mind. I mean, it's not like
I'm just saying, go into work and even accidentally, we'll call it accidentally brush one of your female colleagues' chesticle areas and see if the cops show up.
Oh, there's assault.
Well, that's my opinion, but I mean, yeah, okay, it was probably accidental. Yeah, MP Brozo probably overreacted. Yeah, the hashtag feminists on the internet are being douchebags about this because hashtag feminism and stuff, I guess.
yeah, it
But
just seems
the
like
whole thing
douchebags
could have
all
been-
around.
The whole thing could have been eliminated by our MP just having a level of decorum in the House of Commons and keeping his ass firmly planted in his chair.
What I wanted to see is, we know the sergeant in arms, he's got some big cojones. I wanted to see him pick up that staff/mace thing and then just go over there and start whacking people with it.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's for.
Tim on the YouTube makes a good point, and he is right, and I'm glad he brings this up. Tim says, okay, but look at the way he grabbed the other MP to move him. Is that not more of an assault than an elbow in the tits?
Yes.
And really, it was a form of arrest. And yes, I agree, and the media and the hashtag feminists are massively overlooking that point because it does not fit the narrative that the media is reporting on. Because the fact that the Prime Minister decided that he needed to go and move someone, this goes back to my point about him being a petulant child, that, in any context, is assault.
Yeah, because that was intentionally putting your hands on somebody. Like that, there's no question that that was accidental or not. That was intentional.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing that kills me is they're all focused on MP Brazeau. Everybody's freaking about the hashtag feminism on the internet because she's like a bad woman or whatever because she got elbowed and had to go take a break. Meanwhile, on the Monday... Sorry, go ahead.
I couldn't believe that Chastity to say in an article that she was so offended and so hurt by this elbow that she had to leave because she was crying.
To be fair, that probably makes her the most sensible MP in the whole House, because the House of Commons is not where you go to cry.
There's no crying in politics.
No, there's crying in politics. There's no crying in the House. Do you guys have anything else to say about this thing? Because this just bothers me.
They need to start resolving this like they do in the Orient. Because I have seen countless how many videos in Oriental or Asian parliaments, congresses, whatever the case may be, where they are literally throwing chairs at each other.
Well, we've talked about this on the show before.
You guys...
The whole thing, the reason that I cannot be a politician, because I would love to go and change the system, because the system is broke. The reason I can't be a politician is because dueling is illegal in this country and comes with a 4-year penalty. Also, accepting a duel comes with a 4-year penalty.
But if you got into politics, you could change that.
Yes, but I wouldn't be able to pass my bill because no one would duel me.
I would happily duel you. Not to the death, but, maybe first blood.
First blood, yeah. That's fair.
Because we're gentlemen.
Exactly. There are other certain politicians, I'm thinking of a particular prime minister that, I don't know, pistols at high noon.
Hold on. Didn't Justin go boxing against somebody? Would that not be considered a duel?
No, boxing is not dueling, but it does seem awful close, doesn't it? Also, have you seen the fact that the media picked up on the fact that Tim Mowen, the leader of the Canadian Libertarian Party, may have challenged Justin Trudeau to a boxing match? That's funny.
I would love to see that.
My money's on Tim. Dude's a volunteer firefighter. Dude grew up on a farm. Dude actually practices boxing.
Yeah, I think I've seen a photo of him like with his face all already bloodied and everything from a match that he was in.
Yeah, my money's on Tim Moen. That dude seems like he could kick somebody's ass.
Yeah. I also love though that in one of the CBC articles they even referenced that Stephen Harper was like in the house at the time and just like standing in the corner like smirking like somehow it's his fault and it's all happened because he's in the room.
So I think the way that it read was to the effect that Stephen Harper, who is regularly absent from votes, or it was a rare occurrence that he was in the House, however they phrased it, stood in the corner with a bemused look on his face and a cocked eyebrow. Because remember, Stephen Harper is Satan.
Somehow him being there caused all like
That's right.
why even mention
Stephen
that he's
Harper's
there?
presence caused Trudeau to lose his mind and cross the House of Commons aisle to physically move the Conservative whip.
No, it was Emperor Palpatine orchestrating the whole thing with just the wave of a hand.
Mad Ben, you would think that Stephen Harper was Emperor Palpatine the way our media treats him.
You mean he's not?
I have yet to see him do the lightning fingers thing.
I could not be a politician in Canada because I would be in front of a human rights tribunal within like 20 minutes.
Yeah, you and me both, man.
I literally, yeah. I think, asshole, why don't you come over here? We'll take care of this now.
Yeah, we probably all have to go and watch those HR videos daily.
I don't know. Do we have any other comments about Mr. Trudeau and his temper tantrum?
I do. I have one more. What I thought was so mind-boggling was sanctions against him for what happened.
Well, so you have to remember, in Canada, politics is basically the same as hockey. 2 minutes for high sticking, $10,000 for like checking, 10-game suspension if there's like rough housing. It's basically the same rules.
Yeah. Unless you're the sergeant at arms, then you can fling a mace around like nobody's business.
It's like the only I'm a Cretinous American and we're all just monsters. But it's just like, really? Just get over it.
Yeah.
So that's actually a good lead-in for our next item, which here's some stories that might have been overlooked thanks to the media paying attention to the Trudeaus and not the actual fucking news. Ontario passes a cap-and-trade bill that's going to raise home heating by an average of $5 and gas prices by 4.3 cents a liter. I have no idea what that is in American, Ben. You'll have to do the math. Trudeau visited Fort McMurray, but we didn't hear anything else about it. We don't currently know what's going on in Fort McMurray because the media is no longer covering it. The Liberal Party is going to lead a majority commission on electoral reform. They have 6 of the 10 seats on the committee, but that's not being covered in the news. CCCP is changing the value of Ontario homes by eliminating natural gas heating by 2030, but we're not hearing anything about that.
Well, that's our favorite member of Parliament, the Minister of Democratic Systems or whatever, had their remarks about instead of a referendum, they want to see what everyone has to say about it on Twitter.
Which, oh my God, what was CTV maybe? Somebody ran a poll on this, and like 78% of Canadians want a referendum, according to a poll I saw. And the Liberals are instead going with a Liberal majority committee to look at electoral reform. Have a referendum. If you want to change the way politics are done in this country, do it the right way. Do a referendum. That's the
Well, it wasn't that poll, there were more people that responded to the poll than actually went out and voted in the election as well. I seem to recall hearing that.
Wouldn't even surprise me. Would not even surprise me. The socialist paradise of Venezuela has run out of money and food. That's not being covered in the news. Licensed medical marijuana producers have lobbied the city of Toronto to shut down pot dispensaries, and pot dispensaries in Toronto are being closed as a result. But that's not making the news. MP Bob Zimmer presented petition E111 to reclassify the AR-15 rifle. This received over 25,000 signatures. This is the highest number of signatures of any petition in Canadian history, but it's not making the news. There's court action taking place over veterans' benefits that will break a Liberal campaign promise not to affect veterans' benefits. But this is not making the news. That's a few things that I could find that happened in the past week while we were busy focused on Elbowgate.
Well, yeah, there was an oil spill in the Gulf as well.
Nah, oil spills happen all the time. That one I'm not so concerned about. Shell says they'll clean it up. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
The only reason you're not concerned about that is because we have to deal with it, not you guys.
Yeah, this whole thing is baffling. The media is focused on Elbowgate and Pray for Sophie, and we have all of these other significant events going on, and there's hardly any coverage, and there's virtually no coverage through any of the mainstream media. This isn't stuff that you find on CBC or CTV or whatever the American equivalents would be. Do you guys get in America, Ben? Do you get Canadian politics on any of your mainstream media?
No.
Did you get coverage about Elbowgate?
No. Dude, get is Trump and Clinton. That's it.
Because I actually, on HBO, I saw a John Oliver skit on HBO about Elbowgate. So even Americans are getting inundated with our news.
Yeah, but he loves Canada, and I think he's on top of his world events.
And he's British. So...
Yeah.
Good points all around.
He gets our goofy system.
Now my question...
Well, it is his... What's your question, Ben?
My question about what you were talking about, because I couldn't find anything, was the AR-15 bill that you were talking about. What was
under the Liberal government, we have this new system of electronic petitions for the federal government, which are brand new since October. And I think they're a brilliant idea.
What?
So you can petition the government. Previously, you could petition the government by following parliamentary procedure and submitting petitions on double-sided, legal-size paper with inked submissions where you had to include, I want to say, signature and address or postal code and city. There was like an and/or condition for that. But anyway, you like write down, and if you give the petition to the government, they have 45 days, I think, to address your, we'll call it a grievance. So under the new Liberal platform, we now have the option to do an electronic petition, and we can digitally sign these. So Bob Zimmer is an MP out of, I want to say, BC.
Yes.
Who's been a friend to gun owners for many years and has brought forward many of our various and assorted petitions to the government. And E111 was one of the first petitions to actually go live on the new site, and I think it goes up for 180 days from when it's submitted, and it gets an MP, so that's a member of parliament, somebody that's in government, an elected official.
Right.
So if they're like a co-sponsor kind of a thing. They have to agree to represent the petition, and they're the ones that actually present it to the rest of the government. And anyone can submit one of these petitions online, and any MP can support it or choose not to. There's no obligation either way. Bob Zimmer's a really good guy. He's been a friend of firearms owners for, I want to say, over 10 years now. He signed on with E111, and it's a petition to reclassify the AR-15. The AR-15, as I'm sure you know, is a semi-automatic, magazine-fed, gas-operated, air-cooled, shoulder-fired rifle. Right? Just like what you get in America.
It is America's rifle, after all.
It is America's rifle. It's a big old black freedom stick.
Well.
AR-15s are treated in Canada the same way that handguns are treated. You have to have an additional license, you have to have an additional permit to transport them, and you can only take them to a government-approved shooting range. You can't hunt with them, you can't drive around with them in the car, you can't have them in a holster on your belt, basically your two choices are they are locked up in a safe or they're at a government-approved shooting range to go shooting with for the purposes of target practice. Exceptions to this include armed security for cash transfers and law enforcement. They don't have to play by those rules. They get their own special exemptions. The petition for E111 is to reclassify the AR-15 so that it will be treated as a non-restricted firearm. Non-restricted firearms in Canada are essentially a hunting firearm. This is your average shotgun or rifle. You can basically take it anywhere. There are conditions about how you have to take it. It has to be, for example, it has to be unloaded. You can't have ammunition in it. It has to be stored unloaded. Various and assorted other things about the whole storage and transportation. But basically, you can take it anywhere that it's legal to hunt or to an approved shooting range, or an unapproved shooting range for that matter, which in Canada is basically anywhere that it's legal to discharge a firearm, which is lots of places. Depends on your municipal bylaws. The AR-15, as I'm sure both of you know, is a fantastic varmint rifle. They're used frequently in the United States to shoot gophers in the face with. So the whole idea is all we're doing is taking it and making it that it's no longer a restricted firearm and making it a non-restricted firearm based on other criteria. We still have other criteria we have to deal with, like the overall length and the barrel length. Sort of like in the U.S. how we have ATF short-barreled rifles, like the whole SBR rule in the U.S. where you have to pay a tax. So in Canada,
the U.S.
Yep, go ahead.
The U.S. it's basically anything over a 16-inch barrel length.
Right. So in
whether
Canada,
it be
we have a similar rule. If it's over 16 inches and it's a semi-automatic center-fire rifle, it becomes non-restricted. If it's the same rifle with a short barrel, we don't have SBR laws. We just treat it the same as a handgun. So it becomes a restricted firearm, and it's treated the same way as a handgun is.
So yeah, if you want your short AR, you can put an actual stock on it. You don't have to put that stupid arm brace thing on it, turn it into a pistol.
So this petition...
Well, see, here in the U.S., it's dealt with a couple of ways. We've got what's called NFA laws, which deals with anything that's fully automatic or anything that's under 16 inches. And basically, it's sort of like and suppressors, and it's kind of like your system where you pay an extra fee, and you're able to have it. But that only works in states that allow it. Like I live in Cook County, which is basically the Chicago area. I can't own it. Well, let me rephrase it. I can own an AR-15. I just can't keep it within the county limits.
Right. And our laws are a little different since they're federal and they apply every state.
Right.
In our case, every province is treated the same way. Kind of, sort of, more or less, the CFOs do weird things, but anyway. So that was our big petition, and we plugged that a bunch. So I would like to thank our tens of listeners, nay, dozens of listeners, for signing that petition to help us get over that 25,000. Because I would really like to see ARs non-restricted so that I could shoot a gopher in the face with it. Because if I'm going to start hunting, I think that's what I want to do.
Hell, if I would have known about the petition, I'd sign it.
Well, you could have signed it. There is a non-Canadian resident option on the petition.
Really?
There really, truly is. Because we actually, and in this case it's totally relevant, we have a large number of Americans that come to Canada, particularly Western Canada, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, to go hunting. So it's actually entirely relevant to any of our American listeners that we change this law so that, I don't know, if you wanted to shoot a moose with like a 300 Win Mag AR-10, it'd be totally legal.
Oh, we don't even want to start with the Canadian hunting laws, but that's a whole nother issue.
Oh, that's the show. Yeah, that's absolutely.
You're just angry because you can't club a baby seal anymore.
Do you guys have anything else before we start wrapping up the show?
I'm good.
You're good. Ben, do you want to tell everybody about how you found Gavin on Maple Match?
So Maple Match is a startup that was brought out by that it is trying to connect the liberals in America that as soon as Donald Trump is that don't want to stay anymore, that are willing to find their progressive liberal match in Canada. And I, as a unaffiliated political, I really don't. I identify with everybody, but I felt it my purpose in life to infiltrate the Maple Match so I could find myself a very nice French Canadian woman, so we could bring equality to everybody.
I mean, that's just because you're a giving kind of guy. I mean,
I know everybody needs to be equal.
it's true. I mean, and I definitely do think that you would be able to find the most amazing, beautiful social justice warrior in the French-speaking part of our country. I mean, look at all the French Canadians involved in Elbowgate, after all. And, I mean, Sophie, whatever, Garneau, something like that, Trudeau, also French Canadian.
No, it was actually Rousseau. Or Brousseau.
Yeah, whatever her name is.
Hey,
both French Canadian.
If she's single, I would be willing to be her social justice warrior.
Well, I mean, if JT goes to jail for assault, maybe she'll become available.
Discussing the MP that got assaulted.
No, well, I mean, they're both French Canadian, so, or maybe it'll just match you up with JT himself.
He's a little bit effeminate for my taste, even for a woman.
You prefer him a little bit more masculine?
Not masculine, but somebody that isn't going to take shit for buddy. But I mean, even the boxing footage I saw of him wasn't very impressive.
Well, you know what they say. I mean, everyone's got a plan until they get hit in the face, right?
This is true.
All right, I guess we should do rapid fire feedback, of which we have none this week. So if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do that at facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast or by visiting CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback. Remember, I love your hate mail. If you want to send us email, feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Make sure to include details about how the show offended you, why I should use trigger warnings, and how you feel the internet is your safe space.
I think we're going to need to start putting a trigger warning at the end of the show just to piss people off even more.
So what do we get today? Social justice warriors, feminism, liberals, basically the whole left.
Yeah.
Workplace violence, domestic violence, basically all the kinds of violence.
Yeah.
Titty punching.
Yeah.
No. We didn't talk about the rape culture.
No, but you did say Orientals, so that could offend some people.
Gavin, where's the best place for people to stay in touch with you?
The best place you can find me is on Instagram. You can find me at urbex_GTA. You can see all my pictures of guns and exploring abandoned places legally. Guns, my dog, beer, bacon. You know, the usual.
Ben, do you have an internet-facing personality?
I do on Facebook, but the patriarchy zone, so not a lot of people can find me.
Fair enough. As always, my name is Andrew. You can find all my work on everydaytactical.com or on Instagram and Twitter at edtactical. The show is available at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Canadian Patriot Podcast. If you haven't been one of the 200 people that have gone ahead and given us a like, if you could please do that, I would appreciate it. Similarly, if you'd like to leave a 5-star review for iTunes, again, I would very personally appreciate it. I will thank you on the show for that, and Gavin will drink what you tell him to.
I do have some moonshine that I have a tracking number for that should be here for next week's show.
Oh, that's exciting. Tell him he needs to leave a 5-star review. He hasn't done that yet. I just looked.
Well, I'll remind him.
All right. With that, as always, we'd like to remind our listeners that you are the true North, or maybe an American, that is strong and free.